Welcome back. So I will just kick off into it. This is actually the fifth talk in our second season, so our ninth overall of PIER. If you're just joining us, PIER is actually a series that's dedicated to positivity and innovation for Edmonton's reopening. So that's where we got our fancy name from. It derived mostly because our owner for Homestead, Tegan, she saw a lot of negativity when the pandemic first happened, and we know as Edmontonians, we are resilient, we are strong, we can make it through so many things, especially Albertans in general. And it was something that needed to be spread more. So that's the first sort of idea behind this. As it's evolved, we've kind of gotten to see some different industries and see how they've adapted or what's going forward with their industries. And it's been very interesting to see people who may not see their industries aligning having a lot of commonalities. So we're going to kick off today with our land acknowledgement, and then I'll introduce our guests for you. So Homestead and myself honors and thanks to many First Nations on whose historical and traditional lands Edmonton was founded, including the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge and embrace the fact that we are on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory and the traditional Métis homelands of Region 4. We acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, from First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and now settlers from around the world. We do this to create awareness that we are all treaty people and to show recognition and respect for Indigenous people and the traditional territories for which we live, work, and play. We take our responsibilities with Indigenous people seriously, and together we call upon all of our collective honor traditions and spirits to work in building a great city for today and future generations. Homestead holds the values of inclusiveness and diversity deep within the founding of this space, and the series was created with those same intentions. Today, our focus is going to be a little bit more on the back end of things, and we're going to have a fun talk with our two guests today. So first up, we have Vincent. He's the owner of Lluvia. Vincent has been a Homestead member for quite some time. So if you're a Homestead member joining us, I'm sure you recognize him. Maybe not with the beard. Not everybody's seen him with the beard yet, but he's here and he's rocking it. He's what you would call a full stack developer and has been a solopreneur for about 2 years now. But he has worked with some great and wide varying clients, and we're very excited to have you here. During this time, people can feel free, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat, and we'll work it into his Q&A right after.
Cool. Let's do it. So wait, so do I start talking about
Go for it.
Lluvia? Sure, yeah. Okay. So just kind of like further on what Madison was sharing, I'm a full stack dev. I started out in more of kind of like a video and motion type stream coming out of college, coming out of Nate, and over time found myself getting into development, like a lot of devs these days, starting with WordPress, just like jumping in and messing around, and because of the fast nature of web dev and the ability to see your mistakes and iterate and like build stuff and your understanding of, you know, programming languages and stuff like that, I was able to slowly gain a little bit of knowledge in the space and the area. Worked at a few agencies and studios for a few years, and then decided to start my own. Yeah, I don't know, not much more to say about Lluvia, but that, yeah.
For sure. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the impact that you've seen? I know we were talking just briefly right before this, and
Yes.
yeah, if you want to go into that, that'd be great.
So it's difficult for myself because I'm so small. It's just me right now in Lluvia, but the impact to my company specifically has been manageable because it's just myself and I'm able to adjust cash flow and whatever to prepare for certain things. But I have seen a lot of my clients that are a little bit bigger. And during this time, there's a lot of panic, especially at the beginning with, the employees and their jobs, and the employers trying to keep their employees and not really sure what to do. And this is when all the benefits and stuff like that from the government was still kind of like muddied, and nobody knew exactly what was going to happen. So there was a lot of kind of like confusion going on from the beginning, with a lot of my clients. Thankfully, I bill out, or I book out usually a few months in advance, so I had a decent amount of contracts to kind of like bring me through the summer a bit, but and thankfully none of my clients canceled, and they continued on with me, so that was a huge help for sustaining the company for sure. That being said, I think that going forward and going like after, and I don't know when after is going to be, this is the weird, like the crazy part, but as things progress, I think for my model anyways, I'm going to start feeling the impact of kind of like being booked in advance with a lot of my clients and stuff like that. So for me, that's where my future is a little bit uncertain when it comes maybe September onwards. Whereas before, let's say January, February, I was fairly confident with, March, April, May, June, July sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, we're still in it. I can't really say what the impact necessarily is going to be, but that's kind of how I view things right now.
I find that so interesting because typically everyone sees like right away the impact that we've kind of had on PIER. And when you're looking at booking client work so far ahead, it's not something that you'll feel right away. So I find that really, really interesting that that's kind of how your business model works, a little bit differently than some of our other guests. I do have to ask you the question that I ask everybody as well.
Sure.
And it's, what, in your experience, makes Edmonton appealing to entrepreneurs and special?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer for that.
That's
I
totally
think,
fair.
I think one of the things that's really interesting about Edmonton is the way the rest of, or the way I think the rest of the country views us, who hasn't been here, right? And I think we, as Edmontonians and just Edmonton in general, I think we're grossly, I don't want to say underestimated necessarily, but just underappreciated. Like we have such a beautiful city, or I guess our winters are a bit crazy, but we have such a wonderful river valley, really really good culture when it comes to people taking care of themselves and each other, and I think there's a lot of potential here, at least. And again, I can only speak from my experience from like the tech point of view, but I think there's a lot of kind of like raw talent, I think, coming out of Edmonton. And I also think that we're in a position that we can start to really try to keep those people here. Not to say like they shouldn't go about their business somewhere else and explore the world or whatever, but I think there's a lot of opportunity here to grow for people trying to kind of build their careers, and even people who are coming from out of country as well, right? Like I think Edmonton is a great option, and I think probably for someone coming to Canada, they think Montreal, Vancouver, Toronto, and they think of these, and I think those cities are great, but I also think that Edmonton has more of kind of like an under the skin sort of appeal almost. You kind of have to be here to understand it. I don't know.
For sure. No, I definitely get where you're going with that. And like going into people coming from other places, your work, technically, you could be completely remote. I know you've done some extensive traveling in the past as well. Has that been something that impacted you starting your business?
Not starting it. Maybe it has. I don't know. Um, it's hard to say. I think because I was thinking about that question specifically for a while. One and again, you can't really say if something has influenced you without seeing kind of like the other you that hasn't been influenced, I guess, right? But I would say just, when traveling, you're just always forced to be out of your comfort zone, and you're always forced to like fail all the time, like trying to speak another language, you're just butchering it, but you're trying to communicate with other people, or you're trying to figure out how to get somewhere, and then you end up somewhere completely different, or whatever, but that gaining almost like a level of comfort with failure, and mitigating that, or compartmentalizing it in your head, I think, is what definitely helped with kind of with the courage to start it, I guess, for myself. I've always definitely, since I kind of entered the workforce, I've always been more kind of like employee mentality. That definitely, I would say, helped kind of get me out of that employee mentality, if anything. But definitely after working at multiple studios and agencies, which I loved it, and I learned so much, but I soon realized that definitely could not be an employee any longer necessarily, right? Like I need a little bit more control in terms of the projects that I was taking on.
That's
And so,
exactly what Avery said actually last week. She
yeah,
said she's the most unemployable person, which is why she had to start her own. Not that
yeah.
you're unemployable. I'm not implying that.
No, well, and so that's the thing too. It's just it's I don't think I will never be an employee again. Probably will, maybe, who knows. But I think for me the biggest thing was just the control of the projects that I would be working on, and being able to say no when I want to say no, and not have to work on something because I am on salary, or I am getting paid hourly or something like that. So that was probably the biggest thing for me.
Yeah,
For
that's
sure.
really interesting. I think we've had a couple people talk about the ability of saying no and being able to choose those clients a little bit more carefully, and how that's impacted them in really great ways. And staying true to themselves has been one of their like most proud accomplishments. Is that something that you typically do? Like you do most of your clients come through referrals, or?
Yes, all of them, for sure. And so, and one of the things that I really want to stress too is when I say no, it's not because the project is beneath me or the client is beneath me or anything. It's just because I don't think I could maybe it's something that's just out of my realm, where I don't feel like I have the comfort level to tackle the actual project, or B, I don't think it's a cultural fit. I think that maybe they might be better off going with another service provider of some kind, and I think that's, yeah, I think the cultural fit is usually the biggest thing that I find, like making sure that um maybe the way we view kind of like even something as simple as like just project management, or time investment, or stuff like that, just making sure that and it's usually a feely thing too, like I never know exactly what it is. It's just after talking with someone for a little while, I know, okay, we're kind of like, we're on the same page kind of thing, like we speak the same language kind of thing. And if not, then I share them with such we just have such a great network of designers and developers in this city, especially Sonder there. We'll be
Just
talking
waiting
to
for
next.
that.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I know, speaking with the Meet and other people in digital marketing, they've said the same sort of thing. So seeing that transcend across Edmonton's digital community is something that's really nice to see. And it kind of brings that aspect of a community within a community. And do you find that that's been very helpful, like especially when you started out?
Okay, wait, so can you rephrase the
For
question
sure.
again? Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
So having access to this community of sort of digital entrepreneurs, So
Yeah.
people who work in the same industry as you. Has that been something that has helped you while you've been starting?
Yes. No, definitely. I would say because my business is strictly referrals right now. And I don't know if it's always going to be like that or not. But you know, working or getting work from people that I've worked with in the past that are part of kind of like community is basically what my business is built on, and making sure that I do provide value with the products that I help create with these other professionals. So again, one of the things that I would also like to stress is, for the most part, I work strictly with um, designers and other developers or studios and agencies. I tend not to go directly to the end client, whoever's kind of purchasing the product, mainly because I think there's a bit of a language to that I've developed with vendors like Jeff, where we can rapidly go through and iterate and build something together without having to kind of like go through um, a kind of like an explanation phase, I guess, or an education phase. Not to say that what I do is crazy at all, but it does going through some of that sometimes does slow down projects and stuff like that. So, yeah, my whole business right now is hugely dependent on the community that I'm a part of. And I'm very appreciative of all of the people who have brought work my way, said, even mentioned my name. I'm truly grateful. And even if the projects didn't work out, at the end, like in terms of a fit between myself and the person at the end, like I just love even being able to refer that person to another very talented professional. So yeah, community is huge.
That's awesome. I find it interesting because even when we were first getting to have our chats of getting to know your business, I kind of knew what you did, but everybody has like these weird perceptions of developers. So like, oh yeah, he does computer, and that's about it. So when you're talking about language, it's definitely something that I've seen even within our space. And they're like, well, we have an IT question. Is that something Vince can handle? But it's been very interesting. So I think that getting rid of that learning curve of having to explain terminology or dealing directly with clients who say we want it to like, I just want it to glow or something super non-specific. Is that something that definitely happens when you work directly, which is why you've been avoiding working directly?
Yeah, it doesn't happen because I don't work directly. No,
Exactly.
that stuff like that is definitely, and again, this is something that I find designers are so talented at doing. Web designers is being able to really kind of like bring across or kind of like, how do you how can I say it? Kind of like help the customer navigate kind of like the building of a website or the process kind of thing. And when it lands on my desk, all of those decisions have already been made. You know, everything has been designed. The whole idea of how stuff is going to work and how stuff is going to flow has already been established, so to speak. Um, and then I'm brought in to typically build it. Uh, but sometimes when I'm brought in a little bit early, it's more in terms of kind of like structure of an application kind of thing, you know. But other than that, I come in typically after that. So with you know, how something glows or how something flows is definitely a designer question, and they are incredible at helping the clients really find what they're looking for, kind of thing, you know. Because one of the things too, really quick, that I want to mention too is, and I've experienced this myself, is going in and hiring a designer. You never know kind of like what you want. Like, I have no idea what I want. I think I want something that's like blue and square and over here or something like that. But it's incredible how they're able to articulate, you know, your kind of like very blurry vision of something into something so engaging, right?
Oh, definitely. I definitely agree with you there. When you see the development of something from maybe it was just scribbled on a napkin, or, you know, all we have is the logo, it's incredible to see how much work goes into the back end of things and how much that actually affects everything. Like, you can make it look pretty, but if it doesn't work, that's always a problem, right?
And vice versa. You can make something work, but if it doesn't look pretty, and that's also a problem, right? So
Definitely. I think that's it's a really interesting place that your business kind of lands, and I think having some more clarity around that for our homestead members is going to be really helpful because they'll know when to come to you now.
yeah, if anybody, honestly, if anybody wants to come to me and ask me any questions, I am open to answering any web related questions if I can.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know they'll really appreciate that, especially going through times like this and seeing, you know, we have a homestead community. If we can make things a little easier on each other, we might as well.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Definitely. If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to check them. I do have one more. It's kind of a fun one, and I did not prepare you for this one. But I was wondering if people have tried to sucker you into things in the past, because typically I find that people who know how to code, it developed somewhere, and it's either MySpace, Neopets, or Nexopia. Was that something that you've worked on?
No.
No,
Like,
nobody
wait.
tried to get you to do their page or be like, put the music on it.
Yeah, no, that was before I really got into dev. So when I really got into it hard was probably maybe about 2010, I would want to say.
Oh,
So that was a little bit, because Nexopia and that stuff, that was like what, 2007?
even before that, I think.
Before that, yeah, way before that.
I know I learned specifically HTML just to make my Neopets page look cool.
No way.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
That was my only desire. So I was wondering if that's something that sucked you into the world too. But if you actually managed to escape that, that's impressive.
I did. Yeah, definitely.
I'll
Funny
get you
question.
Is
to.
anybody else Googling Neopets right now?
Oh no.
Apparently,
I have
they've
no idea.
changed things. Did you say you don't know what Neopets is?
Oh.
Oh, this is making me seem much more nerdy than the developers.
I mean, it looks fun.
It was fun. It was a place to play games. You had a little pet.
Yeah.
Apparently they've never closed down anyone's accounts, so my pets are probably not doing great. But you could make your page custom, and I remember specifically looking up like codes to make like little fire things come up the side and trying to figure out how to just make it as cool as possible. And it's interesting that you both avoided the whatever Neopets was, because I find a lot of people go there.
I did. I'm pretty sure I did mess around with Neopets when I was younger. Like, just not going as hard as you did into like the HTML and stuff like that. But I don't remember what it looks like, but the name really,
there's something in there.
It brings me back. Yeah, I remember it was something that evoked emotion in me as a kid, for sure.
Yeah, between that and like Angel Fire websites and GeoCities websites, people used to make some interesting things on the internet. But I found that a lot of people who started their coding journey kind of started by making like weird little side web pages as younger kids. So I'll have to get you to redo my Neopets page.
Can you put a link to it in the chat, please?
If anybody needs it, no, I would have to know exactly what my username is, and that'll take some time as well to figure out. But once we get it popping, for sure, I will let everyone know. We'll link it everywhere. But thank you so much, Vince. You can feel free to obviously stick around because I'm sure we'll bug you with some more questions as we go along. I'm super excited as well because Vince brought along a friend for us, which is awesome because Jeff is somebody who's been involved in the Edmonton scene for quite some time, over 16 years experience working as a digital director, designer, developer, in agency environments, as well as in-house creative teams for very large organizational settings. So he's actually the owner of Sonder Creative and has worked a lot with some of our familiar names with the PIER crowd. So Linda Huang would be one of those, working with her on the original launch of the International Cat Festival, which we got to hear about a couple weeks ago, and has provided ongoing support for people over the years, as well as there's a pretty cool contest that Sonder was running that we get to hear a little bit more about. So feel free, take it away.
Sounds good. So yeah, I guess I've been doing it for a little while now, the design and development thing, mostly front end, a little bit different than what Vince does. Sonder's been around for 3 years, and we're just a small team of 4 very talented people. And we're all, because we're small, we're all having to step outside of our roles to make things work all the time. But yeah, we focus on branding and web design. And that's pretty much what we do all day. And it allows us to do a variety of really, really cool and interesting things. We get to step into other people's businesses and learn things that we never thought we would learn. And it's a wonderful industry to be in.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's I know when you go through the list of people that you've worked with, it's very, very wide on Sonder's website there.
Thanks. That's exciting to hear that we have a vast clients, and that's not even all of them. It's just a select few. So yeah, we've worked with a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to talk with somebody who is kind of so involved in the Edmonton community without people truly knowing too much about Sonder Creative, since it is a little bit newer. But I will start with the question, which is, what makes Edmonton special or an appealing place for you to start a business?
Well, I mean, I think it's a city with a lot of potential for growth for young businesses. So Vince already mentioned this too. Like, we're in a unique city that is, I think, just starting to realize its own culture a little bit, and especially now with the pandemic in full swing, people are really banding together and creating these unique little. I don't know. It's within each industry. I think that culture is sort of evolving, and people are becoming a lot more proud to be a part of the city. And so I think with that, it comes with a desire to support local business in your community. And there's a lot of talent that's here. And so it creates a lot of competition for companies to utilize the services of smaller studios versus the big fish, and just creates this alternative for everybody. So I think there's just so much potential for individuals or small teams to do so much compared to like bigger cities. I spent a number of years in Vancouver, and I couldn't imagine doing what we do here there. There's just too much going on, and here it's a lot less noise, and you can just do so much.
That's amazing. Yeah, Meet said something very similar with, she was like, in BC, we'd all be fighting over clients. It would be no room for collaboration, no room for any of that. And it's interesting that that's been echoed by so many people.
We're still young. I think the city's still so small, and everybody knows each other, and there's so much room to add and contribute.
Yeah, definitely. Even when I first talked to Vince about coming on PIER, he was like, I miss Linda. I know Linda. Also, Jeff knows Linda, and all of these people. So it was a fun little train of how we all ended up here together, because like you said, everybody does kind of know everybody. And
sure.
Has worked with them probably before as well, which I find very interesting. Even there's a member in our space actually who said he was born the exact same week as his wife, both in the Miz, and they had the same baby photographer, so they have the exact same baby photo growing up. And you're just like, that's the most Edmonton thing I've heard in a while.
Yeah, that's true.
For sure. So one of the things I did notice about with your agency is that you focus a lot about mentorship. And I've noticed you talk a lot about it on the website at least. And is that something that you personally had experience with, or was that like a conscious choice that when you started an agency, you wanted to make sure you were building up the next level?
I think, yeah, on some levels I've had experience with it. Like I've led teams before, but really it just it was really nerve-wracking to start a new company. And I think one of the questions you ask yourself is, what do I have to offer potential employees? When I got to that point where it wasn't going to be me anymore and I needed to find some help, what is an alluring thing to have somebody want to have that same buy-in or to be as on board as you are, I guess. And so that was something that I knew I had to offer. And in my experience, I think a paycheck is not enough to build like a team mentality. I mean, it's obviously a requirement, but thinking back to jobs that I've been in the past, or roles that I've been in the past, I don't think I ever really bought into corporate culture. And so I was like, when I was thinking about this, when I first started, it was just exploring these different ways of creating that culture. And I think things like personal growth and being able to rely on the people that are on your team is something that helps you get a little bit more close knit with these people. So I think it's always going to be baked into stuff that I am involved with, for sure. And I hope that the people on our team also have that same mentality.
Yeah, that's awesome to see. I know a lot of people are hesitant to maybe take on that mentorship role. And so to build that right into your brand, I think that's really something nice to see. As well, like we were talking about how you've worked with quite a few different clients. One of the ones I noticed was actually Sparrow, which is another co-working. They have a few locations in Edmonton, and you've also worked with Tech Edmonton, a couple of them, really. I know not specifically Tech Edmonton doesn't promote their co-working space quite as much, but they do have one as well.
It's there, yeah.
It does exist. For those projects, was that something that you found easier to tap into since you are based out of the Sparrow space? Or when you were talking about getting into the brand and learning about a company a bit more, was that something that you kind of had to remove yourself as their client, technically?
I think a little bit of both, for sure. We had ourselves as the guinea pig for both those projects, I guess, in that we're a young company, we've got young company problems. And I mean, everyone that's in co-work spaces for the most part, I think are in a similar boat where, you know, you have these spurts of quick growth and limited access to capital. And really we're relying on the things that we bring to the table to keep the momentum going. So yeah, I think we were uniquely attuned to those couple of projects, for sure. And sometimes that could mean being a little bit too close. So I think like we have to, you know, we had to think a lot about the fact that we know what the real benefits of a co-work space are, and they're not what's advertised all the time. You know, it's not about having an office space that's cheap. It's having a community and being a part of that community and growing and growing alongside other businesses and making connections and all that kind of stuff. So those are the selling points that I don't think come through in a lot of the advertising for co-work spaces, because they're a little bit less tangible. But we also have the downside of knowing the real limitations of them too. Like it's not always easy to be in a space with a bunch of people. And so, you know, filtering our knowledge of those things out to land at a spot that I think it speaks to the truths that are really positive, and, you know, I guess looks for solutions for the ones that are negative. We had to go through all of those thoughts when we were working on those two projects, for sure.
Yeah, I found that really interesting because coming as somebody who is already within the space, it's easy for you to talk about certain things, for sure. Like, you know, things that should be expected, but the selling points I find, we often are like, yep, we've got Wi-Fi and coffee, and everybody's got Wi-Fi and coffee, right?
Yeah. and to be honest, that's like the lowest hanging fruit. Like we bring our coffee every day, and the Wi-Fi is a given. Like, you know, internet isn't too expensive, so it's not a huge selling point. And then, you know, in a co-work space, it's shared. So, I mean, there's problems there, but the real benefits come from your neighbors and sharing work and experience and all that kind of stuff. Like, we've made so many connections just being a part of that community. And then, you know, other sub communities outside of the co-work space, like just like knowing Vincent and we've got a kind of a core group of companies that we typically work with. It's the same idea. It's this sort of digital co-work space. The idea of just having people to rely on, I think is huge.
Definitely. Actually, I think my first week that I joined Homestead, everybody was like, you got to meet this person, this person, this person. And Vince was one of those ones. And it's the people who make the space more than we make the space. As much as we like to think we are the reason for things, it's people like yourself who are making Sparrow what it is. And
for sure,
I love
it's an exciting place to be when you've got people surrounding you that aren't even doing what you're doing. I think that's the coolest part. Yeah,
I think the finding people to bounce ideas off of who aren't necessarily in your field can be really helpful. Originally, what we used to do on Thursdays was called Thursday Think Tank. And that's where everybody would gather in a big room, which unfortunately we can't do yet. But that's where you just be able to say, like, I've done some wins this week. I've got some fails. How do I figure out this problem? And you never know where you'll get that inspiration from. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there with the community aspect of it.
For sure.
So one of the things I've also noticed about Sonder is specifically relationships and how important relationships are with your whole team and with the clients that you work with. It's definitely something that's embedded into your business, but have you had to find that I'm trying to phrase this in the right way so that I don't say it in too awkward phrasing, but with establishing these relationships as a creative agency, is it hard because some people might think you're only trying to be friends with them so that you'll get their business? Have you ever found that?
So I think if I was to be totally blunt, everything stems from business decisions. That's where everything starts, right? But at the same time, I think our relationships with our clients come with this idea, like, we need to treat them with respect, we need to be kind, and we never try and create an illusion of friendship to gain or keep work. But it is business minded, and our relationships often form that way. But the part that matters, I think, is that we end up being extensions of their business, of each other's teams, I guess, right? And you have to work so closely with these people, your team internally, but your clients' marketing teams or whatever the setup is. You have to work closely with these people for, you know, a really intense period of time if you're trying to launch something. And everybody just wants to execute work that they can be proud of. And so while it may start with this business mindset, it often doesn't end there, which is, I think, it's this natural evolution. And when I think about how we actually roll through a project with a client and where we result in the end, I think everybody wants to be on our team happy in their career, and they want to put out good work, and they want to be fulfilled with everything that they do in a day. And that requires a positive environment, and you have to enjoy working with these people. So, and that includes clients, right? So to do that, we have to end up building this rapport with the people around us, and you have to be genuine to do that, right? You have to be yourself, but you also have to be flexible, and you have to be understanding that there's different personalities and empathetic. And the result of that, just operating that way, creates these close bonds just incidentally. And often we'll launch a project, and, you know, if it wasn't for everything that's happening right now, we would love to go out for a coffee or a drink with these people, because we know them now and they're good people. So yeah, I think it's sort of a feedback loop that we've found. If we continually operate this way, there's benefits on all sides. The projects are better, the clients are better, the relationships are better, and it works. It's working really well.
Definitely. I think you can see that, especially when you compare Sonder to like those big ones that you talked about before, the nationwide chains. You can see genuine relationships, and I really like seeing that. And I think part of that is because you are so connected into the Edmonton community, into these people and their businesses.
It's funny. Sometimes I feel like we fly under the radar quite a bit. We have all these connections, but nobody really knows or is aware of who we are. But in some ways, I like that. There's this positivity around it, where someone will stumble across us and decide, oh, hey, they're actually great to work with, and it's sort of like that hidden gem in a way. And it's a nice place to be, I guess.
Definitely. So when you took on the contest that you did, how did that sort of come about?
Well, okay, so it's been a while since we launched it, but we were seeing that a lot of businesses in our industry were trying to contribute, and a lot of them were contributing really successfully. And we're such a small team, and so I didn't know. Like, we got together and tried to think of just a way that we could offer something, and realistically, for people in a small business, we can't do a whole heck of a lot. Like, in terms of devoting hours, we can't do a lot for a lot of companies. So we focused in on, let's just pick one and we'll do something. And we landed on this idea of taking our kind of like our marketing budget for the year and just saying, well, we're not going to do a whole lot with it this year. We've got our work, we're doing okay. Let's put that into a project. And so we just held a contest. And I use that with heavy air quotes because it didn't really feel to us like a contest. It more so felt like a search, just trying to connect with small businesses. And then I chatted with all of there was a short list of people that sent us messages, and we just interviewed them and just tried to find out where we could actually have an impact and do it in a sustainable way, that it doesn't just sort of cause problems for us in an already difficult time. And so, yeah, that's where we landed, and we ended up choosing a finalist, and we're just getting started on the branding efforts now. And it's been really fulfilling, and it's very exciting. And it's actually, to be honest, it's like we're treating it like any other project, and it's going to be work that in the end we're going to be really proud of. So I think it's a win on both sides for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know when people talk about branding packages, website, the entirety of it, it's a lot of work. So for you to find somebody who you can provide that to, I think it's super inspiring for the Edmonton community.
It's one of those things where, I hope we can do it again next year. I think there's opportunity to sort of spread some of that cost for ourselves out over time and potentially have impact if this thing keeps going on. And we are noticing that some other small businesses are still having trouble and struggling in the new year or something. I'd totally be open to doing it again. I think it's a big effort, but in the grand scheme of things, for us to do it for one company, I think it makes sense.
That's amazing. Like, honestly, I think seeing so many companies step up in different ways has been so inspiring. And we see people like Linda, or who she spoke with. She was on with Johnny as well, who was behind the Here for Good campaign that's still going on with the t-shirt sales. It's incredible to see the impact of technically one small contest. I know it's not very small, but just seeing how that could potentially change a lot of people's lives is really inspiring, and definitely the definition of what PIER is focused on. So it's very interesting to hear about that. I love the idea of doing it again as well.
Yeah, I don't think it has to even necessarily be COVID centric. There's so many other reasons to do it. There's so many nonprofits that could use the support, and this time around it was focused on small business, I think, a little bit more, but yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity. And then speaking of Linda, like I can't even keep up with all of the great stuff she's doing on through her platforms. And I think that's the key is if you have the capability to do something, then squeeze it in. It's not, I think it doesn't have to disrupt your operations too much, but it could actually impact things really, really heavily.
Yeah, I think that's great to hear. I know we have some people who they've actually come to us asking, like, how can we help? We have capacity right now. We're not sure how to do it. And, you know, even us just trying to give back to our community members, we're like, they're all so different. How do we find something? Because we didn't want to just put like a one size fits all, like, here, have a card or something. So even like with Vincent, we gave him a little surprise, which should be coming next week. Just things that we don't typically do for people. So Vincent is getting some directory signage finally. So he's going to be up on our directory, which will be so fun to see. And, you know, we wanted to make like actual impact giving back. And I think that's exactly what Sonder and your team did for what your contest was.
Thanks. I don't know. It's a bit of an experiment, so I don't know where everything's going to land, but I think what it comes down to is that if people are trying, that's the important thing.
Oh, 100%. And it's amazing to see anybody be able to give back at all during this time. I know a lot of people initially panicked and just kind of stopped any sort of thing. Like a lot of charities have seen declines in people being able to donate because job loss and all of those things. So whenever people are capable, or even if it's a little tight, but you still find that you can give back in some ways, I think that's so inspiring. And it's something that I'm so grateful that you were able to tell us about, because I'm really excited to see.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. I think it's something that, yeah, like I said, we kind of fly under the radar, so we don't get a chance to chat publicly with people very often. So it's exciting to be a part of this.
Yeah, I'm excited to see when we got some final results too. I'm sure we'll share it with everybody here so that they can see all of the amazing work. I'm sure that most people on this call have seen Tech Edmonton's website, so they know how capable you are already for that part. But with the contest, it's so much more. So that you get to see all of the cool sides that of the work that Sonder does.
Yeah, we have to do a good job of sharing it. I think that's something that we lack in is our social media side of things, and it's just so hard to be on top of it, and that's the big problem. And I think we'll put the effort in to share the process as it sort of unfolds, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting to kind of follow along with the story. I'm sure a lot of people will be excited to see that. So we'll definitely be bugging you to see updates, I'm sure. But I do want to thank you both so much for taking this time with us. I know there are 800,000 webinars going on every day, so we really appreciate you joining us for ours, as well as when people are listening on the podcast, hopefully they'll be able to check out anybody's social. If you want to give them where to find you guys, I think that would be helpful.
Matt, we appreciate you having us too. Thank you so much.
Okay, go Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, and sorry. Vince has a question for Jeff.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I put myself on mute, so I was just typing that stuff out there. But no, Jeff, I have a question for you. Sure. You were mentioning that you like kind of like the position that you're in with Sonder and how you guys are kind of like a hidden gem. 5 years from now, is that still where you guys kind of want to be? Like maybe, you know, still grow, but you still want to kind of be like in that position?
That's a tough one. I feel it depends on so many things. Like if the workflow is still there Yeah, I like being a small team. I think our team right now we really feel like a family, and that's actually one of the big disruptions with the whole pandemic is we're all separated, and it makes it tough, right? So I like being small, and if we can sustain the work that we get, and we can still continue to get good projects despite flying under the radar, I think I would love to stay in a similar space. Yeah. But if competing on a bigger level is what we have to do to get the work that we're after, then I think we would probably also consider making some changes too. So, I mean, who knows where all of our brains will be in 5 years. I think that's another big part of how we operate, is everything is a team decision. And so if we find observations or we come across observations and that lead us to wanting to grow a little bit, then as a team we would decide to do that. It's not just my wishes, but
right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Also, great question, Vince. We'll get you to moderate next week. He hates it so much, but we do really appreciate that. Even though you're not a huge fan of speaking on webinars, that you did come to talk with us.
The questions were fantastic, and it was great hosting, and it was great having Jeff share all those nuggets of information as well. So
yeah, I think you kind of collaborate, right, with how your work fits together.
Yeah. I feel a quick disclaimer there. One day, Jeff and I will, in fact, work together. We keep on almost working together on things, but then having
so many it's almost projects that we just can't seem to get both of us on top of. So it's
We'll have to do a check-in.
The interesting thing is that I think there's both a mutual appreciation for the skills on either side, and it's tough. Like, it's just like, I'm looking for excuses to utilize Vince's services, and I just, like, we can't find that perfect project where we can both land it.
It's definitely waiting, and it's coming. Yep. We're looking forward to seeing that. It would be a fun day to see all of the fun work that goes into it, for sure. But yeah, thank you both again. This has been really great, and I'm sure we have some fun follow-up stuff to check in with you both on in a couple months from now, I'm sure. And thank you again for spending your lunch hour with us. Next week, we actually have the manager of what was formerly 10,000 Villages, now called Village Goods, coming to speak a little bit about fair trade and how that has affected her business next week. So we'll be having a very different discussion, but thank you for giving us the fun developer side and the front end side and back end side of that. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time with us, and we'll see everybody next week.